So I did it. I finally bought some NIO stock, and in this video I'm going to share with you guys exactly how much stock I bought, my 3 reasons for buying the stock, and what I think is going to happen with the stock over the next few months and years. So if you're currently invested in NIO or considering investing in NIO, make sure to stick around for this whole video because I am going to go through some pretty important details here for you guys today. I think that NIO may have some pretty big potential here in 2019 at current prices, so let's get into the video. So in my last video in NIO, I did say that if NIO stock does drop below $6 per share, I would consider opening up a position in that stock. A lot of you were kind of in the same boat as me, and when I did publish this video on March 12th, the stock was around $6.50, and it had dropped from almost $11 per share just a few days prior. The reason was because they announced their earnings, and although their last quarter set some record numbers there for deliveries, this upcoming quarter has some very poor guidance in terms of delivery and production, so investors were spooked by that and sold off shares. Well, this past week, NIO has been hovering around $6 per share, and it finally did drop below $6 per share during the week, and yes, I did initiate a position. So I don't plan to make this a large position of mine, and yes, I still do think that this is a very speculative position, but currently I did pick up 100 shares of NIO at $5.98 per share for a total of just under $600. I may build this position out into a few $1,000s over the next few months if NIO can turn things around and I get more confidence in the business, but as it stands right now, this is all the money I'm planning to put into this stock. And I'll be completely honest, this amount that I put in, the $600, is an amount I'm comfortable losing 100% of, because like I said in my deep dive, I don't think that NIO has a good balance sheet currently, and I don't think that the rate that they're burning cash is sustainable, and it is possible that they could go bankrupt by 2020, which means I would lose this whole investment. But like I said, I'm completely comfortable with that, which is why it's a very small speculative stock in my portfolio. And I know a lot of you are going to be like, oh well, you screwed up because you bought it near $6 per share and now it's $5.50 per share or even lower. And honestly, I don't care. It doesn't really matter to me because this is not a stock that I plan to just hold for a few days and sell. I do plan to hold it for the next few months, years, or even longer if possible. Because it is a very small position of mine, I'm completely fine just leaving it in there even until retirement if I have to, for the potential to realize some pretty good gains in this company. So now we're going to go through some reasons as to why I bought into this stock, but if you want to hear my reasons on why I'm still bearish on NIO as a whole, you can check out that deep dive. We will leave a link up here, so check that out after you're done this video because it will go more in depth than I will today. Okay, so reasons why I bought the stock last week. Well, the first one is because when you look at the charts here, you can see that $6 is a major support for the stock, and the fact that it's below it right now means that investor sentiment is turned bearish. And generally, I love entering a position, opening up a position, adding to a position when sentiment is negative in a company, because that's when the shares get beaten down more than I think that they should, and that's when I find the best value and the best gains as well. And I've done this plenty of times in my portfolio over the years. For example, one of the more recent ones is Facebook. Got beaten down incredibly hard in 2018. I kept adding shares. I added shares in the 130s, for example. And now the stock is close to $170 per share once again. Now, NIO is no Facebook, but the reasoning and the psychological way of approaching this trade is similar to what it is with Facebook. Wait till sentiment is negative, then start buying into a position and just hold for the long term. So here you can see a closer look at the support levels, and every time it came down to test it prior, it bounced off of this level. Once it happened in September on the IPO day, then again in early October, then again in late October, and then finally in late December. And now when we look at the most recent test, this time we actually broke through and dropped below. But as you can see, we're trying to push back above here, but we're still getting rejected. But what I do like from this chart is that the RSI at the bottom here actually shows that we're way oversold. So this could mean that the sellers are getting pretty exhausted here in the stock and buyers may start stepping into NIO very soon. If that does happen, it'll most likely push the stock higher past that $6 level, and we should start heading up higher. But that's just kind of based on the technicals here of NIO, and since NIO did IPO fairly recently, the technicals are not going to be as strong as a company that's been around for many years and use technicals on that. So you got to keep that in mind if you choose to use this analysis here for NIO. And the second reason that I actually wanted to enter a position and actually have some exposure to NIO is because currently they're the only affordable SUV electric car maker in China. Sure, you have the Model X from Tesla, which is also an SUV, but that's a very high-end premium SUV, and it's not really comparable here to the NIO equivalent ES8. So when a consumer is looking for an affordable SUV that's electric, the ES8 is really the only option. And really, it's no secret that the Chinese government is trying to push electric cars in China, and they're going to give incentives to their citizens to actually purchase these cars. And since NIO already has a cheap offering, it's going to be even cheaper with incentives, and as a result, they should drive a lot more sales in the next few years. And in general, in the market, car market out there, consumers actually prefer SUVs or CUVs over sedans. And although Tesla has a Model 3 that they'll be selling there, it doesn't necessarily mean that NIO will suffer from this because, like I said, a lot of people look at SUVs specifically first, and if they don't like those, then they typically look at cars second. And really, the demand for these SUVs, CUVs, whatever you want to call it, has really picked up recently. And really, it shows the numbers that NIO was able to sell last quarter, which is over 11,000 ES8s, which is an incredibly high number for such a small company still. So I do think that they have a pretty good advantage here. They have a pretty good lead over Tesla when it comes to this segment of the market. And until Tesla releases that Model Y for sale in China, which won't happen for another couple of years or so at least, I think that NIO is in a good position to at least capture a good portion of that market, maybe turn profitable in the next couple of years, which would be incredible. And then at that point, I may actually consider selling out of the stock. Now, the third reason that I wanted to buy NIO here was because they recently announced that they will actually be reversing their plans for building a factory in China. This means that they're actually going to have more cash available, at least for the shorter term. Now, although I believe what Tesla is doing with the Gigafactory build out in China is the way to go for the long term here, I do think that NIO has a lot of short-term problems. It has a lot of cash problems here, and they can't really afford to build out a factory because that could most likely lead them to a bankrupt state. It took Tesla a long time for them to actually build out the factory, pay for the factory, and now employ all the workers in the factory, and for it to actually start making sense for the business and bringing more revenue in for the business. And like I said in my previous point, I don't think NIO has that luxury to hold for too long because right now they have an advantage. They are ahead of Tesla in the affordable SUV market, so they need to maintain that lead and just focus on that solely and not building out factories. And this decision really to not build out the factory comes out after an announcement here that makes it very hard for all of the biggest firms to set up new car factories in China, including EV factories. And because of this, NIO, of course, will not be pursuing plans to actually spend money on building out a factory. But the big thing here is that NIO actually works with a company called JAC Motors, which is a state-owned manufacturer. And in my opinion, I don't think the state, aka JAC Motors, will allow NIO to fail. NIO has really made some big strides in the last couple of years. They have a pretty good brand name in China. In fact, even in North America, people start to know what NIO is thanks to the stock in the stock market because of how volatile it is. And really, they have the whole market sentiment in their favor because everyone's shifting to EVs, especially in China. So because of this, JAC Motors actually has a pretty good deal going here with NIO. NIO does all of the work on the R&D side, spends all of that money on that side, and JAC Motors just kind of goes out and builds the car for them, and NIO pays them a royalty and fees and all that stuff. So what I would think, and this is just my opinion here, if NIO does come on to a point where it's about to go bankrupt, a company like JAC Motors may actually invest in NIO to give them more cash, more funding, or they might actually lower fees or temporarily suspend fees for NIO so they can pay them off later on. I don't think any of these companies in China want NIO to fail because it is a local brand and it is something that the Chinese government is proud of. They love to support their local brands just like any country does. And of course, if they can outsell Tesla, that'll be another reason for them to actually expand globally and actually have a bigger name when they do eventually expand globally. But as with everything with this stock, it's just speculation. Who knows, we might not even get to that state. Who knows, we may get to that state and we may actually go bankrupt. No one really knows, which is why the stock is such a volatile stock. So I mean, it's pretty clear that I'm not really a NIO bull, but I'm not going to pass up a good potential investment opportunity here just because I'm not bullish on the company. Because of how volatile the stock is, I don't think that it's out of the realm of possibility that the stock could actually be above $10 per share again in the next few months or so. If they can execute and actually get their production numbers back up in the next quarter and in following quarters in 2019, there's no doubt in my mind that this will actually be another phenomenal year for the company. And as a result, I'm sure the stock price will rebound and rebound pretty hard at that as well. Right now, investors are not too sure what's going to happen with NIO since they lowered their projection for this current quarter. Investors aren't really sure if that's going to continue into next quarter or if things will reverse. If, however, they do manage to turn things around, I could easily see the stock double or even tripling in a short period of time especially when you look at its current market cap of 6 billion or so. It's not that unrealistic to see the stock at something like $20 billion market cap or so. And really, like I mentioned before, this 100 share position that I have is really a set and forget investment for me. I wouldn't mind having this in my account and just sitting there in the back of my mind until retirement and then checking to see how the stock does. This is very similar to another speculative stock that I have in my accounts, which I rarely ever check. And whenever I do check it, it is up pretty significantly. So I'm thinking that the same will actually happen with NIO over the very long term. However, that being said, if the stock does run up a lot and I think it's a good time to sell the stock, then I will make a video on that. I will let you guys know exactly when that happens. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it when I do post that. But really at this point, I want to ask you guys, since I know many of you were waiting for the stock price to drop below $6 per share, did you enter a position in NIO? Let me know in the comment section down below. And remember, if you didn't check out that deep dive, make sure to check it out. I will leave a link up here. Check it out, watch the whole thing, and let me know your thoughts on the company. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to invest positively, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.